August wrap-up, let's just get straight into this. Down the Rabbit Hole by Pablo Juan Villalobos. Again, I probably butchered that name. I've actually got a full review of this on my channel, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below for you to go check out. So I won't tell you too much about it here, other than I really quite enjoyed this one. Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. I just have absolutely no words for this book. Admittedly, a little bit of a point here. I didn't cry, although everyone said that I would cry, and tears did come into my eyes a little bit, but I didn't like cry at all. It was more like, you know when you get that kind of welling feeling in your eyes? That was kind of what I felt like. It was just so beautifully written, and everything was just as good, if not better, than the other two books in the series. It had just so many kind of looping plot lines and wonderful, unpredictable twists, and it was just an absolutely fabulous book, and the ending was just perfect. I'm not even kidding. I know there's a lot of tension about the ending with a few people, but I thought that personally it was the most perfect ending that this book or this series could have had, and I'm actually more upset about the fact that this is the last book in the series rather than what actually happened in the book itself. I mean, I finished this book and I just had this kind of book hangover as such, where I just felt empty and devoid of emotion, and I just wanted to read more about the characters, and for an author to do that is absolutely superb, and I love Cassandra Clare's work so much, and this is definitely one of my favourite series. Into the Grey by Celine Kiernan. Now, this was something that was totally out of my comfort zone. It basically revolves around a ghost story, and I really enjoyed it. Although it is quite childish in a way, it still is really interesting to read about. It didn't necessarily revolve 100% around the actual ghost story. It mainly revolved around the slow descension of Pat. Now, Pat had a twin brother called Dom, and Dom was the twin that actually got possessed or taken over by a ghost. And it doesn't necessarily revolve around the idea of the ghost taking over Dom, it revolves around Pat and how he comes to cope with the idea that this ghost has taken over his brother, and the fact that he can't really say much without seeming really crazy. I just love that it wasn't in your face, it was quite haunting and quite subtle, and you could definitely see the character development in this book, and it was absolutely wonderful. I wouldn't say it's the best book I've ever read, but seriously, if you want something to start off with regards to kind of ghost stories, I definitely recommend this book. Starters by Lissa Price. Now, I was really excited going into this book. The premise of the book is that older people rent the bodies of younger people so that they can live their lives through their bodies, not in like a weird prostitute kind of way, but in a way that they can put their souls into the bodies of the younger people and actually do things that they did when they were younger so they can feel young again, basically. And I thought that that was an absolutely fabulous plot line, and I just don't think that it was delivered as well as it could have been. The world had way too many plot holes. There was a reasoning why there were these old people and the young people. It was due to some kind of spore war where all the people that were middle-aged got wiped out, basically, but it wasn't really explained, and nobody knew why the spore war happened, how it happened, why the middle-aged people were the only people that died. It just really wasn't explained that well, and it was one of those YA books that had a love story in it, and it just really wasn't necessary, and especially a love triangle. It just really annoyed me because I really liked the main character. Callie was one of the most independent, strong-willed characters that I've ever read about, and I absolutely loved her to start off with because she knew what she was doing in the world, and she knew that she wanted to do things for her brother, and it was just absolutely wonderful to read about. But then it came the whole point of being in love with somebody, quote unquote, and it just really ruined the book for me. I just didn't like it, and she totally changed her character, and then she just seemed to flip between two people, and it was just really predictable and really boring, and I'm not even quite sure if I want to read the second book in this because it really had too much wrong with it. Next I read Unbreakable by Cami Garcia. Now this isn't actually currently out. I will put a little notification as to when it's going to be out, as I honestly can't remember. I think it's in October sometime. I genuinely didn't like it. It didn't have a plot line. Well, it had a plot line, but it was superseded by the idea of a love story. And as you guys already know, I can't stand unnecessary love stories. It just wasn't necessary, and I don't really want to say too much about it, to be honest. I just really didn't like it. Anyways, that's all I've read in August. I plan on reading a hell of a lot more in September because I've had those past few months where I haven't really read as much as I'd like to read, or I've just been reading one book and it's taken me a long time, because at the end of August I was reading Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, I believe that's how you say it, and as much as it was absolutely brilliant, it just took me weeks to finish, and I only finished it last week. Anyways, let me know if you read any of the books that I've read and what you thought about them and what you've read in August, and I will speak to you in my next video. Bye!